Now, Bomb started with us 2 weeks ago. Tell us.
#1 for 4 weeks, and I'm just thankful.
Weeks before principal photography started.
About 2 weeks to learn how to ride a motorcycle.
And that was the
weeks and 1 day.
No, wait, how long ago did we leave Earth?
When I first started, it took me a few weeks to really get the hang of it. Believe
weeks. I've wondered whether you might be having some second
Weeks, and most of my scenes were acting with Lewis.
This evening for this week's night vision.
Oh, great.
No, Robert, you're...
Couple of weeks. A very enlightening speech, Captain. Very enlightening.
we're having a baby in 3 weeks.
We will no longer be.
Our Chicago house for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, don't worry, I'll find.
Time I ate too much turkey bacon. I didn't poop for 2 weeks. For four weeks.
Is this your spawn?
I didn't poop for 2 weeks. For 4 weeks.
Is this your spawn?
Why don't you go look for him? I'll pay you a week's wages and...
Weeks. 6. You don't want to keep it, do you? No.
In 3 months, 2 weeks, 6 days, and...
Join, huh? A few weeks? Why are you acting all shady and shit? How long you been out of joint, huh? A few weeks? Why are you acting all...
Bye.
Come on, Dad, don't hide in the closet. Take you like a man.
2 weeks will go by in no time, guys. You'll see.
Something reeks.
You guys met, and then 2 weeks later, you met again.
5 weeks more. Lent. Thank you. Oh, we must run along.
We've been married only weeks. Barely weeks. Weeks.
Everything's barely weeks. We have minutes to live.
About the script, and it took many, many weeks until they
can hide. If the budget comes out in 2 weeks, suppose I could convince you to sit on this for 2 weeks.
no such thing as 2 weeks in the news business.
Imagine 2 weeks in Boston.
His characterization.
Take a couple weeks off. You gotta go to
A few weeks' time, so it's kind of a no-risk situation.
A wad of cookie dough. After a few weeks, he was carved out of wood.
In 3 weeks.
It was very collaborative. So it was Ari.
2 weeks. Never. 2 weeks.
People ask me what it was.
This is the first time I felt good in 3 weeks or so.
3 weeks of money left. Just about everything you can imagine.
Hours and weeks and months designing.
I have 2 weeks to search all of the former Soviet Union.
Ultimately. We had a few weeks, a bunch of weeks doing the war stuff out in Bringelly.
2 weeks. We have 5 children taken from us.
3 weeks. I came in before anybody, and I've met up with
Letters and compiling them down into my favorites. And a couple weeks ago, I sent them to a publisher. Over the last few weeks.
For 2 weeks in a row, Hidden Figures is the
school, and 3 weeks after graduating, my sister entered
concern, and in 2 weeks, maybe you can explain to the children.
Have been missing now for 6 weeks.
Here for a few weeks.
Where are you, Ricky Baker?
More. For 6 weeks. Faulkner is Caucasian. Well, they got that wrong because you're obviously...
Played and sang for 5 or 6 weeks. He was hilarious about it.
Include it in this week's show because it's one of the most 3 weeks, 2 days, which is another excellent film, throughout the next couple of weeks.
Some people build fences to
Friendships. That's it for this week's episode of... And that's all for this week's episode of Fandango in the... Will be expanding over the next few weeks. Also in theatres and below what you think of this week's movies, what you think...
You know, I went to India a couple weeks before we started. And
I will answer it in next week's episode. And taking you along for the journey, next week's Fandango Indie this week, don't forget to see in cinemas Personal Shopper.
School in France in 2 weeks, so good luck finding her.
Ability to John Wick's life. And so, but in that comes that when it's shot, I'm like, great, John Wick's there. And so I kind of...
It would take weeks? It's the other end of the world!
6 weeks.
About $1. And first week's due.
Hey, fuck you!
Maranzano, Christ's sakes, 2 weeks ago, you guys. The following records.
Weeks. No. You let me know. You got my itinerary.
Switzerland. Every 2 weeks, her vanity case. We don't even know.
Switzerland. Every 2 weeks. Her vanity case.
Problem.
About a couple weeks ago, I was working on my laptop.
2 weeks or something before I came on. And that
long, but it's
How many weeks?
It's been late.
It's been months.
I don't have like a weeks ago. What was it this time? What do you care, Ronnie?
Period. It was 4 weeks and it may have been 5. I can't remember.
Weeks ago. He ain't much of a stud either, from what I hear.
For me today. Couple of weeks. Don't worry about it.
Tomorrow. Noob Marcus in this week's Geekosphere.
You're this. For weeks I've been ill. Fevers, terrible headache.
Supposed to get married in 2 weeks. Now I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Get up here. 2 more weeks, Jack, and we can finally leave.
We're the mop-up crew.
2 more weeks, Jack, and we can leave. 2 more weeks, Jack. It's time to go. Don't take any chances.
Okay, fine, you have 2 weeks, no pay. Maybe you can learn to be a writer.
Homestead 2 in 90 years, 3 weeks and 1 day.
Action.
It's 6 weeks in Malaysia.
3 weeks.
What the hell happened? You were supposed to get in.
You know, weeks on end to do the shower scene and stuff.
Yeah.
Actually.
How long are you here for?
A few weeks.
Weeks. Young man.
It's kind of freaky.
Fresno 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks in Los Angeles. And you're 2 weeks in Los Angeles. And you're working for Howard Hughes.
No harm having high hopes.
Exactly 3 weeks' time, and we'll be bringing you our count.
Weeks of his life.
Who's the girl? She the one that got away?
Well, they all got through a couple of weeks until my doom.
A few weeks we've been finding bodies around the city that were...
Through weeks of acting, like learning to allow...
But a few weeks before the scheduled screening...
Grounded for 2, 3 days, weeks. You're grounded for 3 weeks. Meet your new...
Or 2 weeks ago.
Visa?
Yes.
Is about to become their number.
Is rough. Try waiting 20 years for the question.
When I first started, it took me a few weeks to really get the hang of it. Believe me.
Weeks.
So?
Well, you're a psychiatrist. Don't you think that's odd?
A couple of weeks ago, apparently she was being cyberbullied. It was all...
2 weeks' time.
Movie shoots in 2 weeks, and I feel like I'm definitely gonna get
Weeks. I know I've done some unusual things.
Man already dead.
Next days and weeks other side, that glory.
3 or 4 weeks, you know, and they shot for such a long time.
Actually getting to the few weeks before the premiere.
You could carry on pre-production for another 6 weeks. I'd say no. Hell no, let's just start shooting.
So that I can really freak the makeup people out when I come back.
I'm having a break. I'm having 4 weeks off.
Bit of sleeping in.
And?
I hope they're supposed to be for about 3 weeks at least.
Hopefully come back totally refreshed. And
It's been great to get that texture of Middle Earth into the movie after many, many weeks of shooting in the studio.
We're away for about 7.5 weeks, if the weather holds up. So we're basically praying that...
Spent quite a lot of the last few weeks in a chopper because a lot of our stuff was aerial coverage.
For our actors that are leaving home for 7.5 weeks, we're very, very well looked after. The catering on this.
You see this wig's lovely natural blonde colour. Okay, to get all the wigs ready for Monday.
Dear boy, all good?
fantastic.
We've got 6 weeks and 2 days of principal photography.
1 week's time.
Welcome, guys. We're here on F stage. Come on.
Weeks. Well, g'day. You've seen some pretty good a few weeks' time, or shortly after we wrap, so look forward to...
The film delivers in like 8 weeks. What do you...
My shots to do in the last few weeks of post-production. We had really fun.
Got another 3 weeks and then...
Thing in terms of giving us 8 weeks to train together.
Weeks.
A lot can happen in a few weeks.
Screening a few weeks later, and that went great, and chemistry between the two of us, and a couple weeks went by where we couldn't even...
2 weeks. Not a...
When I'm 80.
And I love myself. The world is a ghetto.
Remember a few weeks ago we talked about the senior... Weeks ago, I don't know, I can't get her out of my head.
Frames long, took us about 2 weeks to set up.
2 weeks. They said it would take a few weeks to get your full memory back.
Why didn't you want to see me? So, working with him the last few weeks has been
Interesting, 2 weeks after all.
Why didn't you make up your bond?
2.5 weeks old, we took her to the hospital for a few kids were my everything. Rachel was 6 weeks old when she was taken.
Celia 2 weeks later.
Weeks now, and it's almost ready.
Weeks.
It's
It's amazing how the need has increased. Charities.
We're looking at 5 weeks before his system shuts down.
On that shuttle for weeks now, sir.
What you want? I got pads, I got singles. Check them out, y'all. 400.
Violence. Took me about 2 weeks to get rid of all the...
There's been tough weeks in Iraq, but our central commitment of the...
In the last few weeks, I have turned into an action star, and this
live for a couple more weeks. Get him some medicine.
A couple of weeks when you've humped your pillow to shreds.
Lookout man was Kevin Weeks.
They came down parked here, street.
Weeks waited until Halloran got into his car and then gave murder. Within weeks of accepting the deal, Whitey named Kevin Weeks. He worked as a bouncer at a local bar called Triple O's. Weeks was well aware of Bulger's reputation, took notice of Weeks' abilities as a fierce fighter. He enlisted Weeks to work as his enforcer.
Relax for the next couple of weeks. It was more like a drug.
Longtime enforcer Kevin Weeks by his side. Kevin Weeks.
December 23rd, 94, he came in and told me that,
A couple of months, Bulger met with Weeks in Manhattan.
well,
Weeks says the last time he ever saw Bulger, tipped off by Kevin Weeks. Hoping for leniency, the police find Bulger's victims.
Kevin Weeks became the
2 weeks to get this money up so I can come and get it.
That ain't your job.
A couple of weeks, but we've got life-size McQueen and Cruz.